within 2 kilometres of the pine sawmill, which obviously takes the mature saw log. There's also a power pole manufacturing plant, which gives another option for people if they've got tall straight trees, which I hope this seed will grow. There's also over the road the Laminex particle board plant, and that plant is the biggest single line in Australia. It takes in about 360,000 tonnes of pine, residues from sawmills, from LVL plants, from the forest, from thinnings, from chips from infield chipping, as well as logs that are chipped elsewhere. Next door to that plant is a glue factory. About 500 metres further down the road is the Preston Chipping Company. That's a privately owned business by Jeff Brooks, who's his family's been in the timber business for a long time with Brooks Transport. He does contract chipping for Laminex for their logs, the Laminex Barr of Wespine. They also do contract chipping for Wespine, and they also have quite a role to play in providing material for Simcoa. They've got some machinery that makes blocks for charcoal manufacture or charcoal processing. So, and that's just within the Dardanup area, and as part of the bigger Collie-Bunbury hub, down the road 10 k's is 2 wood chip plants and wood chip export and log export facilities. The wood chip exports, Wopres and Bunbury Fibre exports. Wopres have been around in one form or another since the 1970s, and have got a purpose-built facility for taking wood chips offshore, primarily to Japan and China for making paper. And they provide a really good outlet, not just for blue gum, but also for private native forest with carry thinnings out of the southern region, and also pine. And I suppose the pine market for thinnings is one that I wanted to stress. It's been an area that Wespine's had a concern about for quite a long time, especially with our relations with Bob Hingston and various people going back to Tree Southwest. And one of the constant sort of messages that we were getting from private growers was that there was an inability to get their plantations thinned. In a lot of ways that's to do with the growth of the Wespine sawmill. When the particle board plant was first developed, it got all of its fibre needs from the forest, because there were no very few mature pine trees around. And as the state plantations have matured, increasingly there's more saw logs coming off them. The saw logs go to the Wespine sawmill. We make timber out of it, but all the sides of the logs and the sawdust and everything goes to make particle board. So as we've grown, they've needed less and less from the forest, which has created a bit of a problem in terms of getting your forest thinned and enabling good forest management and making sure that your trees are growing at their best opportunity, at their best growth rate. So following on from private comments and also from seeing some of the FPC's plantations sort of getting older and older and older and not being thinned, Wespine, through its links historically with Ron Adams, the managing director, who's here, he had good contacts with the Marabini Corporation, who are the owner of Wopres, and Ron was able to convince Marabini to take a chance with West Australian pine into the Japanese market. And since then we've built a good business with Marabini, with Wopres acting as our agents or our contract service provider on the port. So we own the stockpile, and we buy all the logs and the chips and put them on the pile, and we pay Wopres to load the boats, and we sell it over the port. FOB is the technical term. So that's allowed us, I think this year we'll just about crack 1 million tonnes, but at the moment we're about 850,000 tonnes that we've done over the last 5 or 6 years, and that's probably the equivalent of about 10 to 15,000 hectares of thinning that business has enabled. And we've worked very closely with the Forest Products Commission and with private growers. The last 2 years we've actually purchased more fibre from private growers for putting on the boats than what we have from the state government, from the FPC. So yeah, So there's good integrated markets available, right from the very early thinnings right through to the saw log. In terms of the saw log side of things, the Wespine mill processes between about 380 and 480,000 cubic metres a year, depending on market conditions. We've had a couple of really ripper years, but sadly the next couple of years are not looking as strong. But that's not to say that things aren't going to turn around in the future, and with population growth the way it is in Western Australia and the expansion of the cities, not to mention also some of the recent changes in the ability of people to use wood in more applications. Four-storey wooden buildings have recently been approved as deemed to comply. There's an increasing interest in timber-framed houses, so the walls and the roof being made out of timber. So that's going to grow the market. So even without population growth, there's a good chance that there'll be more pine required. Having said that, there's more demand for pine than what our sawmill can meet within Western Australia. There's a lot of timber that comes across from the eastern states, and also there's a lot of timber that comes in from Europe of all places. So it's very much a global commodity, and we've got to compete with these mills. And I'd like to say that we're going to be able to compete, because if you can't compete in your own backyard 150 k's from your main market, then you probably don't deserve to be in business in the first place. But a lot of Czech Republic timber is coming in from Estonia, Latvia, Czech Republic through a company called Stora Enso. It's the world's largest timber products company. They've got the benefit of having a lot of containers that are coming from China that are taking white goods, consumer electronics and that sort of thing into Europe. It's looking for cargoes to get back to Singapore, so they're able to backload timber at very competitive rates and are able to compete very, very well with us in our own home market. So that's been a bit of not a wake-up call for us, but it's certainly got us on our toes, and we're looking very closely at customer service and how we can really capitalise on our local advantages to make sure that we're relevant to our customers and they continue to use locally grown wood. So the future's good. Competition is definitely here. There's a global market for timber, and there's a global market for saw logs. There's plenty of international trade in saw logs. Certainly it's well known what sawmills around Australia are doing, and they've got to stay on their toes, because if they're not competitive in how they're pricing the logs that they're purchasing, then there's plenty of options for people to export elsewhere. So from Wespine's perspective, we want to be the predominant purchaser of saw logs into the future, and we're aiming to maintain our presence in this market, compete, and continue to provide an outlet for people who want to grow pine trees. And we'd encourage people to invest in pine trees. There's a solid market for it. Good markets for the intermediate products, for the thinnings, and we can't encourage people like Mike and Michelle Moore to put their foot down and plant some trees. So, and CLT is a timber product where you basically glue dimension timber, like what you'd see come out of a sawmill. You glue it together into panels, and that allows you to use wood like a tilt slab sort of construction. So you can tilt up these big panels that are pre-cut with all the conduits for wiring and windows and what have you already in it, and then you tilt it up, and then you drop a floor made out of the same stuff and bolt it together, and then you just keep going up and up and up like that. They'll build 17, 18 story buildings out of it. There's some in Melbourne. It's really capturing a lot of attention. So far as Western Australia goes, I don't think there's been any CLT buildings built, but there's some on the cards, I'm told. It's a great product. It's probably can't see a factory being built in Western Australia that'll make it. If there was to be one, it would be probably eastern states, because that's where the bulk of the population is, and the scale. If you built one here, you'd probably find that you're shipping most of your product east. And the southern USA pine industry is into pellets in a big way.
And Europe and Canada.
Yes, but the southern USA and Canada are mainly exporting to Europe, where there's subsidies and various things that encourage people to mix in biomass in with their coal. And so you can mix it in with a certain ratio between 5 and 20%, so it avoids the need to dig up so much coal. Because it's a renewable product, it counts as a renewable energy source, because rather than digging out coal and releasing the carbon dioxide, you're just recycling the carbon dioxide through trees that have recently grown. So there's some real environmental benefits for it. There's ample opportunity in Western Australia for that. We've got it could be another outlet for pine, it could be another outlet for eucalypt, it could be an outlet for thinning native forests that are using a lot of water in the catchments and providing a bit of a fire risk for towns. So it may be possible to integrate some renewable energy generation with some bushfire mitigation as well. Do some thinning around towns, around water dams, catchments, get some water flow back into the dams, maybe have a bit of a salinity impact as well through getting more clean water into the dams. So yeah, pellets have a good opportunity.
So what would be the limits on the constraints for development of say wood pellet sector in Western Australia? Is it the resource, or is it
I would say it'd be
development? Or?
This is just my personal opinion, because Wespine is not in that area. But just personally, I think the major constraint is going to be public perception and reaction to thinning native forests and turning them into a fuel that gets burnt, even if it's in lieu of coal, which no one likes. I think people will probably object more to chopping down native trees and chipping them and burning them than they will to coal. Wespine is a structural mill, and we're making structural products. We can deal with branches provided they're not too big. So I think pruning would be a wasted investment, is my honest view. There are export markets for pruned log, but unless there was a lot of it and you could market it smartly, you'd probably get picked off by the exporters, and you wouldn't get full value out of your pruned logs in such a small export market. You need to be big like the New Zealanders.